This is a fantastic state. This is a great, great state. I can go up and I can say to everybody, oh, thank you for the victory. It's wonderful. Or I can go up and say, who the hell was the imposter that went up on the stage before and claimed a victory? She did very poorly, actually.
New Hampshire is first in the nation. It is not the last in the nation. Well, I'm a fighter. And I'm scrappy. And now we're the last one standing next to Donald Trump.
Well, CBS News projects former President Donald Trump won about 55% of the vote in yesterday's New Hampshire primary. But Nikki Haley says that she's not leaving the race yet as she sharpens her attacks on her opponent. New Hampshire may have been her best shot at overtaking Trump, though, thanks to the high number of independent voters in the state. Here to break down where the campaigns go from here is Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa. Good to see you this morning, Bob. So Nikki Haley made it clear that she wants her campaign to carry on. Her supporters also feel good about her results last night. We're going to play some sound from them.
We're really hopeful, but we think she did really well. There was a lot of great energy in the room, and it's on to South Carolina, and hopefully this single-digit difference will help boost her going forward.
Just the beginning. We got the rest of the nation. This is what we wanted. We wanted less than 10%, which we hope stays that way. And I think we got a strong candidate.
All right, so of course her supporters are enthusiastic, and I expect the campaign to have plenty to say about their path forward. But I heard a really interesting quote earlier today, and it was something along the lines of, candidates never run out of things to say, they just run out of money. So that's the question. What about the donors? Do they still see purpose in investing in Nikki Haley moving forward?
Now for the Nikki Haley campaign, they believe that the financial support will be there for her in the coming weeks ahead of the South Carolina Republican primary. At the same time, donors are going to start to need for her to pony up at these fundraisers, whether it's in Florida or New York or elsewhere, to really show that they're going to put money not just behind her campaign, but behind her allied super PAC, which would enable her, if she gets a lot of money, tens of millions of dollars, to be on the airwaves in South Carolina and then be on the airwaves in early March in all of those Super Tuesday states. This is really a crucial crossroads for the former Trump ambassador. Can she ramp up a campaign not only in her home state, but in nationally speaking, ahead of Super Tuesday? Because that's what it's going to take to be competitive against former President Donald Trump.
So speaking of the former president, obviously he won in New Hampshire. He won in 2016, too. I'm curious about how you would compare his performances between the 2 years. Did he grow his support? Does his support look relatively the same?
He's an unusual political figure because he's running as a candidate this time who's also a former president of the United States who commands a movement inside of the Republican Party. And for his campaign to finish over 10% ahead of their nearest rival is seen as a positive for them as they head into South Carolina. But many Trump critics throughout the GOP sense weakness, vulnerability in Trump's numbers last night. Yes, he won big in New Hampshire. He won big in Iowa. But there's a belief, at least in the traditional Republican quarters, that he has vulnerability, not just because of these showings and the numbers, but because they believe that Haley can start to maybe build a larger coalition and that Trump's legal challenges still hover over his campaign.
Yeah, I think that's a great point when people look at New Hampshire, and you may want to dismiss New Hampshire as a small state that's not reflective of what the general population looks like. But the fact that there were so many undeclared that supported Nikki Haley, I think might give us a window into the challenges that Donald Trump could face should he make it all the way to the general election. Right now, all these court cases seem to bolster support for him. But perhaps the outcome of the race in New Hampshire suggests that in a general election, it might not work out so well.
That's a great point, because there is concern among my sources in the GOP that all of these court cases might stoke the grievances of Trump supporters now, but long term, they could be a drag on the Republican ticket. No one who's running for the House or Senate, especially in a tough district, in a suburb, in the mid-Atlantic or somewhere in the South, they don't want to be talking about hush money payments to a porn star when that trial starts in the spring. They don't want to be talking about January 6th every other day when that federal trial begins at some point, as it's scheduled to, in the spring or summer. Then you have the classified records trial, and we could go on and on about all the other legal challenges facing former President Donald Trump. So Republicans are saying he might be our nominee, he might be our strongest candidate in terms of uniting the party, but at the same time, they know that the Biden campaign, as we saw last night when the president was in Northern Virginia, see a big target on Trump politically to take him on all of those issues.
Yeah, because as you know, at the end of the day, these elections are won by winning over those crucial undecided voters in sort of the final days of the election. But we'll have plenty of time to talk about that, Bob. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to bring in Nancy Cordes now. She's at the White House as President Biden's campaign team signals that they're turning their attention to the general election in November. So this is really interesting. We've seen, in terms of messaging coming from the president, kind of continue to evolve, really hitting abortion really hard now. And now there's a bit of a shakeup, too. He's moving crucial people around.
Right. This is a sign that they are looking past the primaries, Anne-Marie, and to the general election. Mr. Biden's allies say Donald Trump is knocking out some of his top GOP rivals more quickly than they initially expected, which means they need to speed up some of their general election plans. And that means some staffing moves at the top of the campaign and stepping up their attacks on Trump.
Donald Trump is betting you won't vote on this issue.
In Northern Virginia, President Biden argued one man is responsible for the full or partial abortion bans that now exist in 21 states.
It was Donald Trump and his Supreme Court who ripped away the rights and freedoms of women in America. And it'll be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all of you who are going to restore those rights for the women of America.
Even as he spoke, his campaign was keeping an eye on events unfolding in New Hampshire. Biden campaign officials saying Donald Trump has all but locked up the GOP nomination and labeling Trump's victory speech bitter and confused sounding.
They used COVID to cheat, and they did a lot of other things, too.
Abortion rights will be a major theme for the Biden-Harris campaign. And here's one reason why. Exit polls from New Hampshire last night found that 2/3 of Republican primary voters oppose a national ban on abortion that's been proposed by some congressional Republicans.
Extremists are trying to pass a national abortion ban to outlaw abortion in every state. But what they need to know is that we will not allow it.
And yet another issue is likely to dog President Biden throughout the campaign season.
What does that do? How many kids?
Pro-Palestinian protesters interrupted his speech over and over last night and had to be escorted out.
We got a couple more of these, I think.
Now that Donald Trump has won 2 primary contests in a row, President Biden is sending 2 of his top White House aides to join his campaign sooner than expected, to the relief of Biden allies who had been urging such a move for some time, Anne-Marie.
Oh, that's very interesting. What more can you tell us about this move by these White House advisors?
So these are 2 individuals, Jen O'Malley Dillon, who actually was the campaign manager for President Biden back in 2020. She's now the deputy chief of staff here at the White House, and then his longtime aide, Mike Donnellan, who's a senior advisor here at the White House. They had sort of been splitting their time between, White House duties and campaign planning. They had been doing it from here at the White House, and they had intended to continue doing that for some time. Now, all of that is changing. They're going to be leaving the White House. They will be working at least part-time in Wilmington, where the campaign is headquartered. And that is a move that some top Biden advisors, even reportedly President Obama, had been urging. They were worried that the president was trying to run too much of this campaign out of the White House, and that would slow things down if you had a campaign apparatus and a White House trying to make decisions that really need to be made. And you need to be able to turn on a dime when you're campaign planning. So this is a reflection of the fact that they are now acknowledging that Donald Trump has booted nearly every Republican but one, Nikki Haley, out of this race, and he's going to have it locked up quicker than expected.
Interesting. All right, Nancy, thank you very much.
You're welcome.